Hi, everybody. I'm here with Ryan Stewart, and we're talking about recruiter enablement. We're going to talk specifically about like recruiter enablement in the context of assessment. But before we do that, Ryan, for anybody that doesn't know you, give us a quick introduction. Tell us a bit about your background and what you do today.
Sure thing. Sure thing. I am Ryan Stewart. I am about 20-year professional in all things talent acquisition. Have been on both sides, third-party staffing and internal. I timed it perfectly. So I was in Austin during the big booms that we had over the past 15, 20 years. Had the opportunity through consulting and staffing company I started to support a lot of people coming to Austin. So supported HP, AMD, Dell, GM's expansion into the Austin market. From there, was brought into Indeed to help launch their first venture into the staffing space. I was the founding recruiting manager for Indeed Hire, where I owned all IT recruiting nationwide for that model. From there, pivoted into kind of the product side of Indeed, worked on their SMB tools, basically providing the voice of the recruiter so they could understand how that impacted their customers, and have gone on to be recruiting operations manager for Sligo, and I'm currently the head of product for Affintus, which is a behavioral science assessment designed to help inform companies in a way that they're not getting just from skills-based or other factors that people look at in interviewing.
Right, terrific. Okay, so I'm all about recruiter enablement. I'm all about it's not so much the kind of big operational sort of things, but it's about how do we make sure that recruiters have got all the knowledge and skills and tools and content and things that they need to be able to complete their tasks?
Yeah.
Let's talk about assessment because it's an area I don't know that well. Like,
Okay.
what are the best ways to enable recruiters to be really great at just delivering assessments?
Well, I think it's more beyond the assessments. I think it's really trying to get to what we are trying to accomplish here and thinking about role here is to help impact the success of an organization by getting the right people in the right seats. Like we have the ability to impact the success of an organization more than any other team, right? If you don't have the right people, the right strategy is going to fail. So you've got to have the right people, and that's where we can play a major part in that. And I think that behavioral science is a key component of it, and is also a gap in many organizations. We go through an evolution as a recruiter. When you really start out, you're evaluating candidates and you're looking at, oh yeah, they went to Stanford and they worked at Google. That's great. I'm going to move them forward, right? And that's really kind of a shallow look at how that candidate can be successful. And as you mature as a recruiter, you start getting into, oh, well, they worked on this project that had this impact on the organization. You start getting into what role they had on the success. And then kind of as you continue to mature, you understand how they did that. And that's where that behavioral science component comes in. And whether you're using assessment or whether you're kind of building out interview processes that really can focus in on that, it is a key component to making sure you're making the best hires.
So, I mean, it's like a lot of recruiters, their natural background is sales, right? So, how do I go from being a salesperson to actually understanding all of this kind of psychology, I guess?
Yeah, it can be challenging. I think that's one of the things that we try to emphasize is using plain language to articulate it. I think one thing you can do as a TA leader, and a lot of companies may hesitate with this, but if you can get in real well with HR, and I know there's this natural kind of collaboration, but also push and pull with HR. But one of the key things you can learn is why are people leaving? And if you can really use that to influence why your hiring processes, it can be very impactful. What you'll quickly find, and you can prove this yourself, I don't have to prove it for you. If you can have that conversation, you'll quickly find that the reason people leave is rarely skills based. It's never experienced in education base. It's rarely skills based. What it often is a lack of engagement for some reason, motivation, and those are all tied back to those behavioral characteristics that you can measure and that you can evaluate. And then if you can make those refinements based off of the insight you're getting to why people are leaving, then you can have a huge impact on that success. So as far as kind of the complexity of it, there certainly is some science. Our Affintus was built with a PhD. You've really got to have that kind of deep knowledge. There are decades of research out there that you can dig into. But again, we tried to simplify it to where it's a little bit easier to understand, and you just use the process that we have in place to get to the insight you need.
Okay, so products like Affintus, clearly, they're baked in with all of the expertise. So the recruiter doesn't need to be a behavioral scientist or anything like that.
Right,
But
right.
how do I choose what's the right type of assessment for a particular level of job or a particular sort of, business function or whatever it might be? How should I be thinking about that?
Yeah, and this is a challenge because there is a stigma around assessments, and a lot of that is because some of the earlier assessments were not built on sound science. Like MBTI for instance, is one that a lot of people are familiar with. They will on their front page of their website tell you it's not designed to be used for hiring, yet people still do. And then the results you get from using a product that is not designed for hiring are exactly what you'd expect. So there are a handful of tools out there that are designed to be predictive, Affintus being one of only a few. But what you can do is there is a validation process you have to go through as you're building out a tool that ensures that you measure what you say you're measuring, that the results are consistent and predictable, and that you are not introducing bias into the process. And that's a key component of it, is that you have to have a solution that, again, as we've all been made aware of, like the Workday lawsuit right now, that does not introduce bias in the process. And if you can get the solution that you're evaluating to provide that documentation that they've gone through that process, then that should protect you and make sure you're working with the right tool.
So assessment is an area where there's always controversy about it. I'm going to talk about a couple of the areas of controversy, and you can tell me your perspectives on them. So the first one is around like assessing people for culture fit. What's your comments on that particular subject, that thorny subject?
Yeah, culture fit is a thing if you're measuring the right things, right? You may have a company that emphasizes collaboration, and there are people who their inherent traits don't align with that collaborative nature. Now, the key thing to know is that you can be successful in any role, even if you're out of alignment on a single dimension, on multiple dimensions. Really, where it becomes a problem is there's significant alignment, and that's kind of where you get that problem that employee who's not going to work out. So you develop strategies, and we do a lot of work on the job seeker side to help them understand what those potential gaps are and what strategies they can use to overcome those gaps. But that's part of it. The culture is a real thing if you're measuring the right thing. And I think that's where a lot of companies get into trouble is it doesn't matter if they also like golf. It doesn't matter, if they come from the same school as you or in the same fraternity. What does matter is, how they interact with others, how they work with others. Those types of factors can be critical.
Let's talk about another one, which is AI. So, there's been a lot of debate, and again, it's controversial. There's been a lot of discussion about, well, I was auto-rejected by the ATS because it's using AI, right?
Yeah.
Like, what's your comments about AI in the area of assessment? Just
This
overall.
this is a fun one on LinkedIn right now, right? So all the recruiters are screaming as loud as they can. No, it's not. We're the one rejecting you, like it or not. But I don't think AI has the maturity to be validated for what we're trying to do right now. So I think that if you are implementing an AI solution to actually make a decision, at this point in time, I think you're putting yourself at risk. Now that may change. We're evolving very fast. There are companies out there who are implementing AI solutions, specifically some applicant tracking systems, like Ashby's one, who has the ability to kind of look at a candidate and maybe provide you additional insight, but they're not making the decision. They're providing insight that can help inform your decision, and that's the key differentiator. Is if you're using AI, for additional context, great. If you're using AI to kind of push somebody out, I think you're putting yourself at risk right now. And I know we're all pushing to try to have more efficiency, especially with the high application volume in the white collar space right now. But that's something I'd be hesitant to do.
So let's talk a bit about Affintus. Affintus is one of only a tiny number of companies that's accredited globally to do what it does. Just give us a bit of background on what that is all about.
Yeah, so that's the validation process I referenced earlier. It is that you have to have an external party, no one internal, to actually put your product through the ringer. And it's looking at all the different things that you need to prove. Does our questionnaire tell you what you want to know about the candidate, and is it valid? Does that alignment project to what they'll be doing on the job? So our survey data set on the job side is very deep, typically thousands of surveys for every job that we do. And then also, as I mentioned, that importance of reducing bias or really eliminating bias at this stage. If you put a validated assessment or a single recruiter reviewing resumes, the bias will be less in a tool that has been validated to that extent. And so that's why it's so important to go through that process. It's also why why so few have. It's a 3-year ordeal to get to where we were just in development before we can go to market.
So what types of companies would be most likely to go, yeah, I need Affintus? What types of companies and people?
Some of the challenges we're helping support right now are companies with high turnover, because again, that's largely driven by behavioral factors. So we can really help inform companies on where those gaps are, either through the use of assessment or also we do consulting services as well. So, there is some hesitancy for that. We have that opportunity too. Early career is extremely beneficial because now you're trying to make a decision on someone who doesn't have a background that you can really rely on. You don't have that experience. You don't have the skills you can measure yet, but you're looking for some key measurable component that will enable them to be successful. We can address that very effectively. It's really effective at every tool, but those are the areas where I think we see the biggest impact and the quickest adoption.
Great, Ryan, it's been good to talk to you today. Thank you very much for giving me some of your expertise. It's not an area I know particularly well, but I've certainly learned some great things I can take on for the future. And yeah, I really appreciate you joining me.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate it.